and competency levels, you can ask your questions now before we move to the next level, that is writing objectives. Questions, it seems. If you have any question, you can still ask, especially about competency and competency levels. If there are no questions, then we can move to our next part of our lecture, that is writing objectives. All right. Sorry, must have been some kind of signal issue, right? Such things happen all of a sudden, right? Okay, let's continue. Let's start. I told you that I'm going to discuss about writing objectives, more about writing objectives. We know that we have we divide our education into 3 domains. What we teach, we teach our students under 3 domains, that is cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. Then you have personality traits, social skills. With all these things, we expect perfect personality development of our students. That's basically our education. For all these things, we should have our objectives of teaching, right? So there will be objectives. There are objectives of our lessons. These lesson objectives, the specific objectives, are put into general objectives. Once they are added together, or once you start achieving them one by one, after some time we have achieved a general objective covering all these specific objectives. So once you achieve a general objective, several of them, we have covered an aim of education. When you cover all the expected aims in your education program, it goes to a goal. There can be several goals in the education program. Right. So that's the basic of this. And when I discussed about cognitive domain, sorry, not cognitive domain, of course, it's about writing objectives. We discussed something called SMART objectives. I remember I told you the word SMART. So SMART is an acronym. We take the first letters of 5 words and then build the word SMART. S from one word, M from one word, A, R, T. They come from 5 different words. And these 5 different words are characteristics of objectives. So can you guess what these things are? What does S stand for?
Specific.
That is specific. So as usual, objectives are specific. So we want the objectives to be very specific. The name?
Measurable.
Measurable. So everybody can speak because it's at the beginning of the lesson. I hope that everybody is still in front of their device. You can switch on your mic and just say one word. Yes, measurable. We should be able to measure our objective at the end of the lesson. Right. Then we have A.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Achievable.
Achievable. Right. So that is achievable. We should be able to achieve the objective within the given period of time, given in a sense the time we have. And some people, instead of achievable, they use the word agreed upon. There can be agreed upon objectives, because we agree, both the teacher and the student agree that within this lesson we try to achieve this particular goal, right? So it can be usual, the common word is achievable, and there can be agreed also. Then we have R.
Relevant.
Relevant, right? Yes, some call it realistic, right? But now we understand that the realistic and achievable, they have a kind of similar meaning. If it is achievable, it is realistic. Achievable within the given period of time, so it is realistic. Therefore, now we are moving to more towards this relevant, right? So the objective should be relevant to the level of the students, to the particular theme we are discussing, the particular unit we are discussing, and that should have some kind of use for the students in their day-to-day life, to the education program goals and aims. So therefore we go with relevant. And the final one, T.
Time bound.
Yeah, it should be time bound, right? Should be able to achieve within the given time, and this the objective should have a kind of timely quality. It should have a timely quality. It should be suitable for the existing time, right? There's no point in learning something which was applicable somewhere in the history, right? If it is applicable somewhere in the future, that is fine. But still we say time bound is that one is to the given time limit, and it should be suitable for the existing time. Right. Okay, let me share my screen with you, and this still the screen is loading. Oh, it seems today I have poor internet connection. All right. Okay, we are there now. So we are going to discuss this smart objectives. How can we make sure that our objectives are smart? Right? S stands for specific, right? So you want to be specific. Specific questions. Right? So thing is what? What do I want to accomplish? My words, I say what am I going to teach my students? What do I want to teach my students? What do I want to accomplish? Then accomplishing the goal. Why should I? Then ask the question who? Who is involved? Right? When you write objectives, I'm sorry, I'm continuously having this problem today. There must be something wrong with the internet connection. Yeah, I get the message. Your internet connection is unstable. Let's see. Still the screen is loading. So we are talking about these specific questions, right? How to make our objectives specific, ask these questions. So it's like we ask the questions what, why, and then who is involved, where, define location, where it is going to happen. All right. I'm back. I'm back in my phone. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear now.
All right, good. So because I can't connect the laptop to internet connection, there's some problem with that connection, and still I am trying to find a solution to it, because that's how I can share the documents with you. So once it is okay, I will share the documents. Until such time, let's continue our discussion like this. So we were talking about smart objectives, and I told you how to be smart. So under that, we were talking about being specific. So for being specific, before we write our objective, we need to ask some questions, W questions. All right. I'm back with this. Right. It's easy device. Can you still hear me? Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good, good, good. Right. So let me share the screen also. Right. So for being specific, we ask these questions. What am I going to teach? And why am I teaching this? To whom am I going to teach, or who is involved here? Where is it now? For example, now it's like this. If it's a dialogue, you say greets others using appropriate phrases. So then these greetings, we should know where these greetings are taking place. Is it in the classroom? Is it in a shop, bus stand, at home, before going to bed? So like that, we should know where this is going to happen, where the students are going to use that particular language, if it's language teaching, right? If it's like a mathematical calculation or something, where are they going to use it? Are they going to use it in a fair, in the shop, right? Or building something? So like that, we should know where they are going to use it, right? Which identify requirements and constraints. Right? So what are the requirements of this? How broad it is, what limit is there, right? So if the students are learning to count, up to which level are they learning to count, right? If they are going to learn division, what type of things are they going to divide? Are they going to divide digit numbers, 3-digit numbers, 4-digit numbers, like that, right? And it should be measurable, right? That's where you ask the how questions, like how much or how many, right? If you expect the students to write sentences, how many sentences, right? If you expect your students to build something using some scientific knowledge, so how many things you expect from them, right? If you expect your students to run, how far do you want them to run, right? Things like that. How will I know when it is completed, right? So that's the next thing. How am I going to find whether the students have completed it? You give them a puzzle, to fill. So how can you find out whether the puzzle is complete? Right? You ask the students to draw a kind of, let's say, something like a water cycle or something. So how do you judge that it is complete? If they draw the sketch, if they draw the picture, is it complete? Or do you want the students to label the items there? So you decide. How are you going to say, yes, how are you going to say that it is complete, right? And we have achievable. We have another word here also, just forget that. Achievable, right? So then again, achievable, how can the goal be accomplished, right? The way, how it is achieved, right? What's the process we expect our students to use, right? So if the process is applicable and suitable to the level of the students, capabilities of the students, then that will become achievable. So make sure that your process is suitable for that level. Relevant and realistic. So we discussed both words, right? Relevant and realistic. The relevant comes first, right? So ask, does this seem worthwhile, right? Is it up to the level, lower than the level, or beyond the level, right? If it is lower than the level also, it is not realistic, right? And it is not relevant, of course, right? Does this match our goals? So see if it is right relevant to the content, right? If you want your students to learn to cook something, right, just check whether you have really taught them cooking, right? Preparing like an instant noodles may not be cooking, because there's nothing to learn, of course. Does it match the real goals? And finally, time bound, right? So ask these questions related to time. When, right? What are the main milestones? Main milestones, due dates, if it's taking long time. Oh, right? See by which level of the lesson, what stage of the lesson, how far of the objective should be achieved, should have been achieved. And where is this going to take place? When are the students going to use this knowledge? So by asking those questions, you can make sure that your objectives are smart. Right, with that, I would like to share a video with you. Hopefully we won't have any issues when the video is playing. So as usual, let me share my screen and then move to the video, and we'll play the first few parts of it. And then ask you whether you can hear and see. Will take a little time to open. Bear with me. Can you see and can you hear?
Yes, sir.
Both. Right, good. Then you can peacefully watch this.
Welcome to this video on SMART objectives and how you can use them to create great performance. This is one of a range of management development videos from GBS Corporate Training. Objectives are short, simple statements that outline key tasks or outcomes that we need to achieve in our job. You don't need an objective for everything, just the most important elements of the job. Between 4 and 6 should do. And to be useful for managing as well as evaluating performance, your objectives need to include the task to be done, the key conditions that apply to the performance of that task, the standards that apply to the performance, that is, how it's to be done, and that will enable performance to be measured. Imagine that you're setting an objective for someone to change a tyre. The performance is change a tyre, but that is pretty vague. What sort of tyre is it, and under what conditions is the tyre to be changed? To make a more useful objective, you need to be more specific and include this information. Conditions in the garage, and then the standards. Within 10 minutes, complying with all safety precautions, ensuring it's inflated to the recommended pressure and that the wheel nuts are tightened to the recommended torque. Notice that the language of this objective is very immediate and active, using lots of verbs, and this makes the objective clearer and more directly relevant to the job holder. Use the same sort of language in your own objectives. An easy way to remember how to write good objectives is SMART. SMART stands for specific and stretching. Objectives need to be specific about what is to be done and how achievement will be measured. They also need to stretch us, recognizing that the best performance comes from being challenged to do better, and achieving this, of course. The M stands for measurable and motivating, and you need to be able to tell whether the objective has been achieved and to what degree. Equally, the objective needs to motivate great performance. The A stands for agreed and achievable. You and the employee should agree the objectives. This helps build commitment and ownership for results, as well as clarity. If you've agreed the objective, it implies that you've had a conversation about it, and these conversations may also identify development needs. Objectives should also be achievable. Stretching, yes, but not so stretching as to be unattainable. That would be demotivating and unfair. The R stands for relevant and reinforced. Objectives should be relevant to the individual. This means both meaningful as far as their role is concerned and also tailored to their level of experience. Take account of varying levels of experience development. It's reasonable to expect more from someone who's been doing a job for 10 years than someone who's just out of training. Performance and achievement needs to be regularly reinforced with support and development and regular feedback. And the T stands for timed and trackable. Specific timescales or limits can help add clarity and make the objective more easily measurable. They can also help organise work and affect its achievability. And if it's a big ongoing task, you should include staging points or milestones for major steps and reviews along the way. Ask yourself if the objective supports tracking progress. Making objectives SMART is so important because vague objectives will not clearly specify the level of performance you need, support self-management of performance, support you in managing an individual's performance, or help you give objective feedback on an individual's performance. And if required, it will not enable formal action to be supported. That's the end of this video on SMART objectives. I hope you've enjoyed it. There are many other videos available from GBS Corporate Training to help you achieve great performance.
Right. So that's about SMART objectives. You can see now when you watch the video, you must have understood that different people interpret these letters, the words, in different manners, and there were some new words. But basically, those 5 words are there: specific, measurable, achievable, or agreed. Measurable, now we saw in some places they said motivating also. Measurable, smart, achievable, realistic or relevant, and then timely or timed or time bound. So those things are usually there. There can be other interpretations also. So that's about SMART objectives. Let's discuss a little more about this. So let me move to some other areas. I believe that we can move to discuss further about writing objectives, but I'm just wondering whether we can go for the 3 domains first and then go to the discussion of other writing. Yes. Yeah, right. Yes, so let's start our discussion about 3 domains. How we can write objectives related to the 3 domains: cognitive domain, affective domain, and psychomotor domain. Do you have any idea about these 3 domains? What is the domain really? What do you understand when we say the word domain? And before that, please, I have added a document to the chat in case that if I lose connection again, you can take the document from the chat and then refer to it. So then I can join using my phone and explain to you what is there in that document. So it's I'm going to start with Bloom's taxonomy. So I have uploaded the document to the chat. Can you see it there?
Yes, sir.
Good. Just check whether you can get it downloaded from it. Is it opening?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, right, good. So keep it with you. So if anything happens, if any disturbance is there, then I will move to my phone and explain to you that document. Right, so first of all, tell me, what do we mean by a domain? What do you understand when we hear the word domain? What is a domain actually? I didn't hear it. Can you repeat? Hello, I heard somebody trying to speak. Any idea about what a domain is? There can be domains in so many fields. Asina says that she didn't receive the document. Maybe you joined after I added it to the chat. Just check in the chat box. When I added it, I noticed about 10 participants. So I don't think that you were not there. Just check. Maybe you can't see it in the chat, but it must be available there. Let me see if I can repost it. Right, so I'm reposting it. It should take seconds again, so then you can take it. Yes, can you think about these domains? Okay, Rasina, can you see it there now?
Yes, sir. Then now only I received it.
Okay,
Maybe
right.
I have joined after that you
Yeah,
have
maybe.
posted.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, what do we mean by a domain? So we talk about 3 domains in education.
The domains mean some specific areas that we should cover within the topic or whatever the area.
Yes, yeah, it's a specific area. Actually, it's a specific area of learning. Right, so we have 3 of these specific areas in education. Right, it's an area of development. We want our students to develop that. Right. So to develop these domains, we employ different techniques, strategies, and methods. So those are the areas that they will develop in their brain and muscles and even in the mind, right? So from these 3 domains, I'm going to discuss about the cognitive domain first. What do we mean by cognitive domain? What special area of development or what special area of learning is there in cognitive domain?
So is it related to knowledge and skills development likewise?
Yeah, there is actually it's knowledge, development of knowledge. Right. Then we have psychomotor domain. So what is psychomotor domain? What do we try to develop there?
The physical movement and everything?
Yes, that's about the physical movement, development of physical movements, how we use our muscles, etc. Then we have the affective domain. What is the affective domain?
Development of qualities, I mean,
Yes.
the habits and virtues.
Yes, correct.
The emotions and everything?
Emotions and yes, attitudes. So that's heart. related to heart. We name these three domains as 3Hs, that is head, hand, and heart. Head, hand, and heart. Head is the cognitive domain where you try to develop your brain or knowledge. And then hand is the muscular performances, physical performances. And then heart is, as you said, emotions and attitudes, what we feel and how we feel. We should develop all these three with the other personality traits and social skills. Then finally you have a good human being. Okay, so let's discuss this first part about Bloom's taxonomy. This is the document I shared. I added to your chat box also. So let's see it from here. Bloom's taxonomy of learning. Now, Mr. B.S. Blooms, Benjamin S. Blooms, somewhere in 1950s, developed this. He divided the cognitive domain or the brain development into 6 stages. He said that this happens in 6 levels, right? The most basic level is remembering. When something is taught to us or when something is taught to the students, the first thing they do is they remember it, right? Teach them a word, they will remember the word, right? Maybe even without any understanding of it. They may not know the meaning of the word, but they remember the word. Now, for example, right? If you study, if you carefully observe how the language of our kids develop, right? These small kids, they start talking, they start to talk when they are about 8 months, 1 year, like that. They listen to what they hear in the environment, catch the words, right? And in some places, they don't know the meaning, but still they remember the word and they utter it all of a sudden, right? And parents become, in certain places, parents become like flabbergasted when all of a sudden a child said the word that we never expect a child to utter. And we wonder, where did they learn it, right? So you must have seen these experiences. For example, some now field the words used by the adults, right? Just imagine that a small kid, it's 1.5 years or 2 years old, is living in your place, living with you in your house, right? If there happen to be people like working around, maybe let's say the masons, carpenters building a house next door, next garden, right? These kids, they carefully listen to those people and the words they utter, they catch them, right? They don't know the meaning, but they catch the word and the word is remembered. So they all of a sudden they utter it without knowing the meaning. Not only those like the unpleasant words, any kind of word they just utter. When they hear it continuously, they remember and they utter it. That is remembering. So you also can remember anything. Now, for example, another thing is that we love music, and we love music of the other nations also. And we can hear these Hindi songs and we remember the words, but we don't know the meaning, right? So remembering happens without understanding. You can remember things without understanding, right? So the first level of cognitive development is remembering things, right? So that happens in mathematics also, right? That happens in science, right? Some scientific names you would remember, right? But you don't know what it is. Like there can be these botanical names, zoological names, right? You will just utter some words or you hear them because they are Latin names. People will remember the Latin name without knowing which plant it is. Remembering the most basic thing. Second level is understanding. Right? Remember the facts and then understand. Right? If you understand only, then we go to the next level of applying that knowledge. If you understand, then you can apply. Right? So in mathematics, right, anybody can say that 1 plus 2 equals 3. Right? Some of them, because they remember them, they will say, okay, 1 plus 3 is 2 is 3. Right? If you go to science, and now people say every action has an equal reaction. Right? They don't use that equal and the opposite, but they say that every action has a reaction. Right? That's the third law of Newton. Right? We just say it, merely say, even the fishermen say it, right? Carpenters say it. The fishmongers, the people who are selling, the vegetable sellers, they say it. Whenever they meet the others and in discussions, every action has a reaction. Right? But if we ask them to use this, apply this theory somewhere, right? Nobody can do it because they don't understand it. Right. So now anybody can say that E equals MC. That is Einstein's theory. Right? We remember that E equals MC, but nobody knows what is E, what is M, and what is C. So that is remembering that it is necessary. After that, understanding. If you understand only, you can use that knowledge. Applying, and then we have the developed skills called analyzing, evaluating, and creating. Right? This is the revised version of Bloom's taxonomy. I will come to the old version later. Right? In the old version, this the ordering is different. Right? The next one is analyzing. We should be able to analyze things. When some mass is given, you should be able to break it into small parts and explain it. What components are there, right? So evaluating is seeing the value of something. When something is given to you, you should be able to see the value and explain that value. That's what happens usually in this literature. Also, if you want to write a literary appreciation, what you usually do is that you try to see the value of it, show the value of it to others. You say these people have used this type of techniques, and the techniques have been successful, so it has this particular value, right? You can produce something new. Somebody has produced something new. Now you can evaluate it. Right? You see the uses of it, benefits of it to the society, the financial value of it, how it is valuable to the society, the medical value of it, everything. Compare, analyze, contrast. Then you say this particular thing is this much of value. That is evaluating, right? Then the most difficult one is creating. Right. If you are, let's say, you are a film director, so you should be able to create a new film. You are a singer, so you should be able to create a new song. You are a dancer, so you should be able to create a new dance. You are a scientist, so then conduct an experiment and produce something new for the society, for the world. A doctor, try to find a medicine for a particular disease. That is creating, right? Teacher, try to find a new methodology of teaching, effective methodology of teaching, right? If you can do that, you are a good creator, right? So that's the highest level of using your brain. Those are the 6 levels. Let's go further, right? So we come to the first level, remembering, right? Explanation of remembering. What you remember, usually simple short answers. Examples. What are the names of the bones in your arm? When did World War II begin? So mere facts, right? Remembering means the mere facts. Definitions of things. Sorry. Flashcard facts. What is your reading assignment for next week? When is your next test? So the remembering dates, events, the historical things. Now for ingredients, you should use in a kind of curry or some food item, right? That is remembering, right? Next level, we come to understanding. Moving toward in-depth understanding and being able to construct meaning. Expand on simple memorization to create a bigger picture. Name 3 ways in which Abraham Lincoln is considered a successful president, right? So then mere knowing that Abraham Lincoln was there and he was a successful president in that country, right? That is not enough. You should give reasons. Why is he considered a successful president? What are the recurrent themes in the movie Anatomy of a Murder, right? So just watching the movie and then being able to relate the story to somebody is not enough. That is remembering, right? You should be able to understand the theme in it and then say the theme to somebody. How does the central nervous system coordinate movement? So just explaining the elements of the central nervous system, where the brain is, where the nerves are, how do they like the travel through the spine, and then where are they divided, and how do they like travel to the at which points do they start moving to the body, may not be enough. That is knowledge, that is understand, sorry, that is remembering. We call it knowledge, right? You should be able to comprehend and show your comprehension. Move forward, apply. Now apply that knowledge. Put your knowledge to use. Implement your understanding. Examples. What do other filmmakers tend to borrow from Spielberg's methods, right? So Steven Spielberg used several methods, right? Now, if another director can take some technique from Spielberg and use it in his own films, okay, he can apply that, right? How might Oliver Stone have directed the film E.T.? How can you apply knowledge to a situation or problem, right? You observe how a person solves a problem, right? You learn it, you remember how he used it, right? Now, when it comes to your practical situation, can you use it? The way you use it, that is the application. Math applied to construction and business. So you may know this, the calculation of things like, let's say these cosine, sine, tan, etc., right? So if you can practically use those theories and find the height of a tree that is located about 500 meters away from you, that means applying, application is there, right? Making PowerPoint presentations for class, right? You have the knowledge, you know the theory, and you know that something called a software called PowerPoint exists. and you know that you can type, use pictures, figures, etc., right, and make it, then actually making the PowerPoint presentation, that is application, right? Public speaking, know the words, know the language, right? And you can write a speech, but if you can come in front of a gathering and conduct the speech, that's application level. Let's go to this one, analyzing. Think critically about what you know. Analysis requires you to examine what you know. Do you really know it? Determine how do concepts relate to one another and overall structure. Be able to answer multifaceted questions. Discuss topics at length and offer insight, right? So it's something like this. Let's take a practical example, right? A machine is brought to you, right? And it's not working. There's something wrong. So if you can look at the machine, the structure, and say, this is where it begins to work and this is where it ends its work process, right? And the problem is at this place. So repair this particular part and then this will work, right? That is analyzing, right? You can do it. I mean that you can look at the small things inside a complex build and say this is where the problem is. Or I mean that if you can identify these places, that is analyzing, right? For example, further examples, let's say let's say that you take your home iron, right? We are using the iron to iron our clothes, right? The iron is not working, and you can open it and see the unit inside, right? And identify where the problem is, right? There can be an obstruction, break in the circuit. So if you can find where the circuit is, the small parts of the circuit, and where's the obstruction to the circuit, right? In one part, the circuit is broken because there's a particular part is rusty, gone rusty, right? So if you can clean that part and make sure the circuit is working again, right? That is analyzing. Look at the small parts inside the complex thing, right? Examples. Why are Friday the 13th films so financially successful? Are they successful financially compared to other similar films? Why not? What roles has technology played in recent horror films? How would you classify Jason's personality? Right. So it is more related to films. Evaluating, bringing all the pieces together, what judgments or assumptions can be made after you have critiqued the information? Examples. What types of storylines are popular with the horror film audience? Right. If you can write a good film review, that is evaluation. You say why the film is good, or you say why the film is bad. What are some characteristics of that type of audience? Why are those unique? How might Spielberg's films be different if he'd been born 20 years earlier, right? Let's move to other areas. Like now, just imagine that the people at your home, they are trying to buy a new vehicle. You are going to buy a car, right? So there's a discussion at home, right? Different people suggest different models of cars, right? And give reasons, right? So one person may say like the Alto is the best because it's cheap and it runs so much of distance with a small unit of fuel. So like that. Another person may argue that this particular model is like more comfortable, right? Let's say Axio is more comfortable, right? So don't worry about the fuel cost, right? The whole family can go in it and it is more comfortable, right? Some people say the other thing is that the Toyota products, they have good engines, right? And one person may say there are more facilities, novel facilities are there in this particular model. Like that, you can explain it. You are giving the your evaluation regarding a product. So if you can see those elements, their values, and give some your judgment about it, that is evaluating. And finally, creating examples. Write an essay detailing how Spielberg's directing style is unique when compared to other directors of his time. You use your knowledge and everything, then create something new, right? If you can write a paper article, write a new poem, write a short story, write a novel, right? That's a creation. Prepare an audio-visual presentation illustrating the development of special effects techniques over the past 30 years, right? So if you can create a new mathematical concept, that is creating. Create a website that rates horror films. What will your ratings be based on, right? So here we give the basic level of creations, right? But there can be this upper level, the higher level of creations also, new findings. Right. We have these two memory things. Let me see. Right. Okay. Let's see whether there's anything helpful to us. Let me ensure and see. Right. There we have this short-term memory and long-term memory. I think you know that. How does learning take place? Right. These things are not very important for us, right? Now that you have the document with you, so you can read it, right? Let me stop this one, right? I'm going to be further on this topic, Bloom's taxonomy, because we couldn't discuss about the old version. I want to discuss the old version and the new version, novel version, both. Like what we discussed is the new version, the revised version. Before that, because now we have spoken at a stretch for more than an hour, you must be feeling tired or bored. So I'll give you a small task for that. Let me share another document with you. Examples for some objectives. Hope you can see these objectives. Right. On completion of the study of this unit, the learner will be able to comprehend principles. I believe it's from botany, so science, right? So look at the examples. To comprehend the principles of cytology, to define cytology. So pay your attention on these words. To describe the ultrastructure of a plant cell, right? So all these things are what our students will be able to do at the end of the lesson, to describe the ultrastructure of a plant cell, to distinguish between plant and animal cell by stating the 10 differences between them. See that it's very specific. Distinguish what? Plant and animal cell. How? Stating how many? 10 differences between them. Stating differences, how many? 10 differences. To describe the structure and chemical composition of cell wall. To explain the ultrastructure and chemical composition of chloroplast. To describe, so explain, describe, all these things are there. To describe the 5 stages of mitosis with labeled sketches. To state any 3 aspects that highlight the significance of meiosis. To distinguish between mitosis and meiosis by stating the 8 differences between them. To list any 4 significant features of meiosis. Right, see, they are starting with 2, right? So kind of instructional objective. This is from the subject, what do we have? Biology, right? And earlier nowadays it was divided into 2 as zoology and botany. Right, now what I want you to do is just write 2 or 3 objectives like this, right? Try to follow this one, 1.3 or 1.8. You can see that all the necessary information are there, right? Action verb is there, distinguish, and what are they going to do, right? How are they going to do it, and in which number, up to which level, right? So try to follow 1.3 and 1.8. Write 2-3 objectives related to your subject, whatever thing you are going to teach. Right now, if they say, if they take, now we have a broader objective here to comprehend the principles of cytology, right? So if they are focusing on the plant cell, lesson is about plant cell, and then you can decide any lesson you like in your subject and write 2-3 objectives. So as usual, like if you about 5 minutes for this, right? Thinking that it is too difficult. Take 5 minutes, write your objectives, and as usual, you can add them to the chat. And if anybody wishes to speak to break the monotony, that is also welcome, right? Okay. We'll resume our discussion in 5 or 6 minutes. So spend these 5-6 minutes to write sound objectives, 2 or 3 sound objectives. Right, start. Right. Thank you for your answers. I'm looking at them. Yes, you can start with students will be able to, right? Now in our context, in the government context, if you write it with students will be able to, we consider it as a learning outcome. I will tell you the difference between output and outcome, and the difference between objective and outcome later. Now Rasina writes like that. We'll be able to conduct simple activities to show microorganisms in pond water, right? To explore the effects of microorganisms on food, collect and present information about importance of microorganisms. I like this third one because it's direct. We can clearly see what the students do. But when you say explore the effects of microorganisms on food, I feel that it's difficult to measure. They will explore, but how do we know that they have explored? So it's better to find some way that we can see it. Anyway, they are good objectives. Savin says she sent a better one earlier also to mark points on the Cartesian plane accurately. Yes. Okay. Cartesian plane accurately. Yes. Mark points that we can clearly see. Good. Observable. And that means measurable. Then we have from Taranga topic characteristics and classification of living organisms. Good. Objectives. Define characteristics of living organisms. Describe 4 characteristics of living organisms. Differentiate the organisms into groups within the animals and plants. So let's say as animals and plants. List the features in the cells of living organisms. Right, good. So many of these things go with like knowledge, that is remembering and understanding. You need list is remembering, differentiate is understanding, describe understanding, define, all these are understanding, right? Marking points is application. Marking points on the Cartesian plane is application, right? Correcting and presenting is application. Explore goes with like understanding. Simple activities conducting, that is also application. Good, right? Okay, back to our next presentation. We are still in Bloom's taxonomy. So let's try to finish this discussion on Bloom's taxonomy and move to the other areas, affective and cognitive, psychomotor domains. Let me share another document. Right. Teaching me the revised Bloom's taxonomy. So taxonomy is a classification. So we have 6 cognitive levels according to their complexity, right? Though they are given according to the complexity, now don't misunderstand that we have to wait until the children grow up to like very high levels to achieve the highest levels, like creation, the creating, evaluating, etc. No, even the smallest kid will be able to create something new, right? And they know the evaluation techniques. They can give their judgment about things. They can analyze things, right? So you can try to develop even the highest level of cognitive domain with the smallest kid, right? They are easy with the basic levels like knowledge or remembering, understanding, etc. But you can go to application, even the creating level with kids. Right. So why do we need Bloom's taxonomy? That is to write and revise learning objectives, plan curriculum, identify simple to most difficult skill levels, effectively align objectives to assessment techniques and standards, incorporate knowledge to be learned. You know which part of the things that you are going to give your students, and cognitive process to learn. Facilitate questioning. Oral language equals important role within framework, right? Questioning is very important in the knowledge development of students, right? So here we have the original version of Bloom's taxonomy and the revised one. So you can see in the original one, we have nouns like knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. In the revised version, we have verbs. Knowledge becomes remembering facts. Comprehension becomes understanding. Application becomes applying. Analysis becomes analyzing. Then synthesis goes up as creating. So analyzing means when the big thing is given, you break it into small parts and say this is how it is working. This is how it is formed. Right. Now, for example, if the plant cell is given, you are able to name the parts of it. You say this is the cell wall, this is the plasma, this is the let's say mitochondria or whatever it is they have, right? Chlorophylls, etc. Right? That is analysis. Synthesis means putting small things together and creating a new thing, making new thing, right? We have given cogwheels, chains, nails, etc. So what our children should do is put them together and build a small machine. You give wires, switches, the other things, bulbs, holders, etc. The children's duty is to make a new circuit. Synthesis, creating. We have taught our students grammar, vocabulary, writing techniques, punctuations, all those things, put them together, write a good short story. Synthesis, creating. Right. So evaluation is seeing the value when it comes down in the revised version, because we believe now that generating new things is difficult, more difficult than seeing the value of already produced something. So evaluation is that we give our evaluation judgment, a value judgment about something already created. A novel written by somebody, we write a review for it. A machine produced by somebody, we see whether how beneficial it is to us. A theory proposed by a scientist, we try to see how far it works. Okay, yes. So we have nouns in the original version and verbs in the new one. Right. This is the intensity, right? We go further. Yes, you can see this is how it is developed. Step by step, it goes up. Right. Yes, going up. You can see the arrowhead towards creating. Affective and psychomotor domains are also there. Right. Okay, let's move to that part also. So cognitive domain we have discussed, and now you can see in the affective domain we have the basic level, valuing this. The words may change as we discuss it, right? Then responding, receiving, organizing and conceptualizing, characterizing by value or value concept. Right. So here we have 5 levels in the affective domain, right? Psychomotor domain, the given thing may not be very suitable. I will give you a different version, right? So you can understand. So look at this one. It says categories noun to verb. So the changes we see in the revised version of taxonomy, Bloom's taxonomy. Taxonomy reflects different forms of thinking, right? Verbs describe actions, nouns do not. So that's why the nouns were changed into action verbs. Recognize categories. Knowledge equals product or outcome of thinking. And now we call it remembering. We call it remembering now. Comprehension, now we call it understanding. Synthesis is now changed to creating, to better reflect nature of thinking described by each category. Right? And changes in structure, products of thinking part of taxonomy, forms of knowledge, right? They are equal to factual knowledge, conceptual knowledge, procedural knowledge, metacognitive knowledge, right? Metacognition means thinking about thinking. If you think about your thinking process, that is metacognition, right? Synthesis, now we have changed to creating, and evaluation have swapped their places. They have interchanged. Creative thinking, we believe that it is more complex, right? So creative thinking is a more complex form of thinking than critical thinking, that is evaluating. And changes in emphasis, more authentic tool for curriculum planning, instructional delivery and assessment, aimed at broader audience. When the action verbs are there, even the lowest level of people can understand it. Easily applied to all levels of education, and revision emphasizes explanation and description of subcategories. Right, so these are the subcategories we find in those levels. In the remembering, right, the learner is able to recall, restate, and remember learned information, right? So these actions will be there, right? So you can use action verbs related to these activities when you write learning objectives for remembering level. What you want your students to do is remember facts. Then if they can do these things, these actions, then you can judge, okay, they remember what I taught them, right? So they should be able to describe things, find things in a given list, right? In a given text, they should be able to find things. Identifying, listing, make a list of something. Retrieving, naming, locating, recognizing. You give a picture of a man and ask the children to name the parts of the body, right? That shows they remember the names of parts of body. Understanding, student grasps meaning of information by interpreting and translating what has been learned, right? So if they remember things, sorry, if they understand things, right, they should be able to do these actions. Classifying, comparing, exemplifying, explaining things, inferring, interpreting, paraphrasing, summarizing. So if you know both your mother tongue and English, when an English sentence is given, if that can be translated into your mother tongue, you have that understanding of both languages, right? Applying, student makes use of information in a context different from the one in which it was learned, right? So you teach it in the classroom and the student uses that knowledge outside, right? So things like implementing, carrying out, using, executing, etc., right? they show that the application ability is there. Can students use the information in another familiar situation? So in mathematics, if you say mathematics, you give a mathematical theory and give some practice sums for them in the classroom, right? And if the students find some new sums somewhere else in a paper and solve those sums correctly, that means they have that application ability. They can apply the theory they learned there. Analyzing. A student breaks learned information into its parts to best understand that information. Student breaks learned information into its parts to best understand that information, right? So these are the abilities they will have once they have developed this analysis skill: attributing, comparing, deconstructing, finding, integrating, organizing things, outlining, structuring, right? So see, if the students can break information into parts to explore understandings and relationships, right? So you can see this binocular, if they can like analyze how it is formed, if they can say that these are convex lenses or concave lenses, and it is covered with this kind of a metal or plastic cover, right? And there are also, we have two lenses, right? This lens takes in light, and it is they create an image somewhere, and that image works as an object to the other lens, like that. If they can explain how it works, that is, they can analyze things. Evaluating. Student makes decisions based on in-depth reflection, criticism, and assessment. So they should be able to check things, critique things, detecting, experimenting, hypothesizing, judging, monitoring, testing, etc. Right? And after doing all these things, they should be able to give their judgment, judging. Can students justify a decision or a course of action? So they should be able to justify their statement. We see many questions like that in our examination papers. Do you agree with this or not? Give your reasons. Right? So they can give their stance, they can show their point of view, but at the same time, they have to justify that. That is evaluating. Finally, creating. Student creates new ideas and information using what previously has been learned. Right? So constructing new things, designing new things. You can design a new kind of bridge. You can design, even designing a new kind of dress, kind or the existing type, you can develop it. Devising things, inventing, making something, planning, producing. All these are creating abilities, higher level abilities. Can students generate new products, ideas, or ways of weaving things, right? So those the first 2-3 things we say lower level cognitive abilities. Remembering and understanding, especially in some cases, application also goes there. We call them lower level cognitive abilities, right? Then the other 3 things, they become higher order cognitive abilities, right? Analysis or analyzing, evaluating, and creating. They are the higher level abilities, right? Let's proceed, right? So lower level questions, remembering, understanding, and lower level applying levels, right? So there can be lower level questions. Evaluate students' preparation and comprehension. diagnose students' strengths and weaknesses, review and or summarizing content. So we use lower level questions to understand these things, to diagnose the students' strengths and weaknesses. Higher level questions require complex application, analysis, evaluation, or creation skills. Higher level questions may encourage students to think more deeply and critically, facilitate problem solving, encourage discussions, and stimulate students to seek information on their own. Right? So these are the bases you can use to ask questions for remembering level, right? What happened after that? How many were there? What is it, right? Who was it that? Who wrote the novel like that, right? Name 3 things in something. Find the definition of, describe what happened after. Who spoke to whom, right? Which is true or false. So these are very basic level questions, right? Understanding, you can use these action verbs for that. Explain why. Explain why you see dew on leaves in the morning. Write in your own words. How would you explain? Write a brief outline. What do you think could have happened next? Who do you think? What was the main idea? Clarify, illustrate, etc. That is for understanding. Then applying. Explain another instance where. So that's how we see that they can use the knowledge in new situations. Group by characteristics such as, which factors would you change if? What questions would you ask? From the information given, develop a set of instructions about, okay. Then analyzing, which events could not have happened? If happened, what might the ending have been? So they are able to see the relationships of small things. How is something similar to another one? So seeing similarities. What do you see as other possible outcomes? Why did changes occur? Explain what must have happened when. So seeing again relationships. What are some or the problems of? Distinguish between, right? So to distinguish between, you should be able to see the similarities as well as dissimilarities, differences. What were some of the motives behind? What was the turning point? What was the problem with it, right? So evaluating. Judge the value of something. What do you think about? I am going to give you all these documents, right? So you can later refer to them. Defend your position about your judgment. Do you think it is a good or bad thing? So if you say good, you have to give reasons. If you say bad, again, you have to give reasons. How would you have handled? So put yourself in the same place and think. What changes would you recommend? So if you recommend some changes to something, you have to give reasons. So reasons will be, first you have to show the weaknesses of that, and then how it is improved through the new things you add. That is evaluating. Do you believe? How would you feel? How effective are? How effective are the techniques used by the poet in this particular poem? What are the consequences? What are the consequences if you like deforest in this rate? What influences will have on our lives? What are the pros and cons, good things and bad things? Right. Okay. So many things are there. You can read them. Important thing, creating steps. Design something. Right. So design a machine. Design a new style. Devise a possible solution. If you had access to all resources, how would you deal with? Devise your own way. What would happen if? How many ways can you? Create new and unusual uses. Develop a proposal. we should solve the problem of drinking water in your village. Right, so it's about Bloom's revised taxonomy. And you can read it. Okay. That's it about Bloom's taxonomy. You can read it later when I give you the document. Since we discussed something which is quite difficult to comprehend, right? I don't wish to continue our discussion further. So we have just about 10 more minutes, but I believe that we can stop here. I'm going to send all these documents. I will share them with Mr. Rizad. So he will send these documents to you. And there are few more documents about the other two domains. I will send them also to you, or even after our next lesson, I can share them with you. Even while the lesson also, I will share to avoid some problems we will face due to internet issues. Right, so we discussed about Bloom's taxonomy today, writing objectives, and we will try to write more objectives related to Bloom's taxonomy, different levels. We studied 6 levels. So we discussed about the old version as well as the revised version, and then what type of words, action words can be used in these different levels when we write objectives, right? Yeah, I believe that's enough for today. So that's all from my side today. Do you have any questions? No questions, it seems. Right. So think about this. I will share the documents, go through them. And if you have any questions regarding the information given in those documents, you can bring your questions next day. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Your questions are welcome. Your comments are also welcome. You can say anything about this subject, what we have learned, and we can have a discussion. I prefer discussions rather than long lectures. Right, so that's all from me from this side for today, and we will stop our lecture or discussion here. Right, thank you and good night.
Thank you, sir. Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank
Good
you.
night.